Welcome to Talksicology, brought to you by Recovery Unplugged, the place where we talk about all things substance abuse, recovery, and mental health, with guests offering varying perspectives and viewpoints. Hosts Joseph Gordo and Jason Cabello share about their addiction and recovery and other serious subject matter through lighthearted yet candid conversation.
Dave, welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show. This is
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Go introduce, but I have lots more on ecstasy. Ecstasy was a huge part of
you
my...
were in the club scene in Miami. I'm sure ecstasy was.
Yeah, and I was late to the game when it came to ecstasy. I wasn't, because I worked at clubs in the mid 90s, but I wasn't doing the drugs then.
Yeah.
I was just working at the clubs and looking at these people and like, these fucking idiots. And then I took it at work one time when I was working at a club, and I was like, now I get it. Now I get what all those fucking
anyway, but this is not an infomercial promoting ecstasy.
Yeah, go
Indeed.
Yeah, indeed. But so, today's guest, Dave Thomas. Dave is he is a counselor at Recovery Unplugged. He is a Austin local legend from many a scene and many a venue. Something of a musician himself. Has some excellent obscure musical taste. A man in recovery. Husband.
2 dogs.
2 dogs. Dog dad. Yeah. And I'm sure there's some other hats that you wear that we left out that I've just never known, and we're going to learn about those today.
Fantastic.
So
and you do have a cool hat on.
Thank you.
Physically as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So figuratively and literally, I have many cool hats and wear many different ones.
So I just want to set the stage a little bit, right? So a couple months back, Jason, you were asking me, like, I need to come film a group. I need to get some content for the socials. And he's like, who should I come film? And I was like, you should come film Dave running group. He's a cool guy. I think you'll like him. He runs a great group. Clients love him. And sure enough, you call me after doing that. You're like, man, that Dave guy's fucking cool.
Yeah.
You should have him on the show.
Yeah, I definitely.
Appreciate it.
Long time coming.
Jason and I figured out we have some mutual friends too, which is interesting.
Yeah, especially because you're not an Austin guy.
I'm not an Austin guy.
Yeah.
No, I am just like ecstasy. I was late to Austin.
Yeah.
I always knew that there was something here that I wanted to check out, but I was too busy doing destroying my life.
It does get in the way.
Yeah.
So Dave, I mean, what's interesting is we've known each other for a while, and you're part of our team at Recovery Unplugged. But aside from music stuff, we've really never dove into. I just found out that you're a gamer, like on Monday, right? So what? Born in Austin?
I'm originally from southern Mississippi, from Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
I never would have fucking begged you from Mississippi.
Yeah, well, luckily my hometown is just a little over an hour outside New Orleans.
Okay.
So I grew up cutting school and going to New Orleans as a teenager all the time. Got to, see a lot of fantastic bands in the 80s there. But yeah, I'm from southern Mississippi. That's where I'm from. Other things besides gaming that I like to do. I'm an avid reader. I am a writer. I say I'm a writer much more than I actually write these days, but still one day. And I really love to travel. That's one of my favorite things in the world. My wife and I love to.
Growing up in Mississippi, you mentioned, skipping school and going to shows in New Orleans and stuff like that. So it's, when I hear that, I think I'm like, that's the ism before the alcohol, right? That like natural, rebellious, rage against the machine, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me kind of attitude. Yeah. So, I mean, tell us more about that. When you were growing up as a kid, like what kind of kid were you? How did you show up in high school? Like, what?
Well, I didn't show up to high school much, and that's why I left high school. I didn't graduate high school. As a kid, I was really impulsive, had a very smart mouth, and was told that I was gifted a lot until I started proving people otherwise because I thought I was smarter than everybody. But, it's interesting. I grew up around a lot of alcohol. It's just a really common thing in the South. There's never really a mention of alcoholism or things like that, but I can remember going to the dentist when I was I had to be 8 years old. And I remember I got laughing gas. And I can remember it vividly thinking this is the best thing I've ever had. And like, I wonder if there's a way I could do this at home. And it was interesting. I've talked to clients about this a lot too, about the idea of the disease of addiction, how it manifests. Think about those times like when you're a kid and you're like raiding your parents' beer cabinet or liquor cabinet or whatever, that's like a rite of passage. In my case, it was, me and 3 or 4 other friends. 3 of the friends were like, yeah, that was cool. Me and another friend were like, my life has changed forever.
Yeah.
Let's go. And that's where it started really when I was probably about 15 is when things started going pretty crazy.
See, and I talk about that like when I tell my story,
Mhm.
Or sometimes I'll share it with the clients is like, the first time I tried alcohol, it was like, wow, I need to do that as often as possible.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like 12, so it wasn't that often, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
say first time I smoked pot, right? It was like, this is great. I should do this as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
And it was always the response to every drug ever.
And one of the interesting things too is, so when I was 15, it was around like 1985 or so. And I was playing in a punk rock band with some guys who were older than me and stuff. But the thing was, the drinking age at that time was 18. And I mean, when I was 15, I looked 15.
Yeah.
You could go to any bar in New Orleans and get served. They didn't care. And so there was never like you were saying, it didn't happen that often. We were able to do it all the time because we were really only a couple of years away from the drinking age. And like I said, New Orleans, you used to walk in the bar.
You weren't having to sneak around and
not at all.
Yeah.
I'll take a whiskey sour.
Exactly. Yeah. I was talking like that when I was 15.
Kid sounds just like Tom Waits.
Rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy.
I mean, the hat works too with the Tom Waits thing.
Yeah.
So you're 50. So you're already playing in a punk band at 15.
Mm-hmm.
So what came first, the punk or the shitty attitude?
The shitty attitude, most definitely.
Yeah.
And then I found
And luckily.
punk rock. Yeah. And I was like, whoa, these people think like I do. But really it was like, in Southern Mississippi, it wasn't like I could go to the record store and buy like a Black Flag record or that there weren't really any punk rockers. Our punk rock band, the Baptist Creatures in the heart of the Bible Belt, was the first hardcore band in Hattiesburg or maybe in Mississippi that I know of. When I finally heard like some punk rock stuff, I was like, wow, these are people that want to change things and they don't like their surroundings. And I loved that. But the first thing that really, really, I didn't like where I grew up. I didn't like the people. I didn't like the attitude. I didn't like really anything about it. And then
you didn't have like Confederate flags all over?
No, but you know what? I didn't realize that it was wrong to have them because I saw them everywhere.
Yeah.
I also didn't realize it was the people all over the U.S. didn't eat squirrel. Yeah. I found that out when I moved to Baltimore.
You've had squirrel?
I've eaten squirrel a bunch.
Oh, wow.
And I joked about eating squirrel and somebody's like, you eat squirrels? It's like, well, yeah. But anyway.
That's good eating.
They are. But I remember seeing, staying up late and watching Don Kirshner's rock concert and seeing David Bowie on there. And when I saw him, I knew like, this is a person that could not exist where I live.
Yeah.
And I want to live in the realm that he does. Yeah. And seeing him just made me realize what a great big world there was out there beyond the Tri-County area that I knew of.
And what year was this around?
Probably around 76, but it's when he had like shaved eyebrows. It was like post Ziggy, but still
lightning
like
bolt
Ziggy.
Face, right?
Yeah. And I was just like, I saw him and I'd never seen anything like that. And then shortly after that, Trouser Press magazine, which was one of my favorite things in the world, is an old punk new wave mag. I opened it up and saw a picture of the Ramones, and I was like, these guys are so weird looking. I love this. And then after I heard my first Ramones record, Rocket to Russia, I knew that everything I'd heard before was garbage.
There was this thing, and I hate to be that old guy, like before the internet and stuff like that, but we did grow up before the internet.
Yeah.
And I just remember the feeling of like seeing a band and then reading the little write-up that they had in a magazine about them, and that's all you knew about them for an amount of time. And like I would build up this lore in my head and these stories about what they were doing and what their lives were like, and then a lot of times you would hear them and be like, this isn't what I thought they would sound like, but it's good. And then there were other times when I was just like, this is what they fucking sound. Or you'd hear like a band name and be like, I like them just because of what their band name is. Or like I saw them in like a skateboard magazine.
That is a bummer that like bands don't have like that mystique anymore.
They don't.
Like,
no.
I remember as a kid, like I really loved the Ataris. They were, one of the first pop punk bands that I was like,
we
I
had
love
the
these
same
guys.
booking agent as they did for a while.
So like in the pre-internet age, like my best friend surprised me by taking me to like an Atari's gig at like a Mexican restaurant in Laredo that I had no clue about because I hadn't come across the correct flyer. You know what I mean? And that shit could just happen.
Yeah.
And then you would meet them.
Yeah. And that was like, I can like walking down Decatur in New Orleans, things like that, going to Metronome Records and seeing the flyers and knowing like, okay, wow, this is what's happening. And I'm going to come back down for this. And, getting to do that is interesting. Metronome Records was like my place. I remember I bought Misfits Walk Among Us there, knew nothing about them, but I'm also a big horror movie fan. And I noticed the logo of this band is just like Famous Monsters of Filmland. And look at them and look at these song titles.
What a perfect band for you. Right?
I know, right? And I brought them home and I was like, man, this is like Halloween at Kmart. I love it.
And this is like when they first came out, right?
This would
In
have
the late
been
70s.
This is real Misfits.
No, yeah, this would have been, I bought that in 84.
Okay, so a little bit later than when it came out.
I think that album did it come out in, Wolf's Blood came out in 83. So yeah, 81, 82, that came out. Yeah. But it was a Ruby Records copy. I mean, they weren't flying off the shelves.
Yeah.
So,
which by the way, in case you guys were wondering, Danzig still sounds amazing.
Does he?
So it still sounds amazing.
So Joseph just went to see the Misfits, Suicidal Tendencies, Agnostic Front, and
the Reverend Horton Heat.
The Reverend Horton Heat.
Like, whatever.
But what was the highlight? Did you go beginning to end, full show?
Yes. So we missed a little bit of the Agnostic Front set, but funny enough, they closed with a cover of Blitzkrieg Bop.
Oh yeah,
yeah, which was amazing. But it was really cool, y'all, because it was sort of an assignment from my therapist, right?
Yeah.
My therapist was like, what does Joseph do for Joseph? That kind of stuff, which, and so I was like, well, there's this concert coming up. I want to go do that. She's like, you should go do that. Right. And she was like, by the way, I'm going to be there. But if you see me, you don't have to say hi to me. Right. But so
see you in the pit.
But so, I haven't been to like a punk rock mosh show in probably like 6 years. And the last show I went to was Dillinger Escape Plan. And I was too scared to get in the mosh pit for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so I go to this show with a high school friend of mine, and it was really cool because it was like, wow, like I'm hanging out with a person that does not have any assigned role for me other than like Joseph.
Party.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not his boss. I'm not his sponsor. I'm like, we have no obligation to each other. There's no, it's just, I am Joseph. I get, like just to be myself.
Nice.
And we're at this punk show. And at first I'm kind of like, okay, we're at a punk show. This is different from the concerts I normally go to. And I mean, by the end, like I am in the fucking pit on Astro Zombies, like hitting people and being hit. And I'm just like, this is it.
One of the most violent shows I've ever seen in my entire life was Agnostic Front did a reunion show. It must have been like 95 in New York. And I mean, like people are dancing with fucking box cutters and stuff. It was
holy shit.
It was pretty intense. That was one of the times where I was just like, it's a little bit much for me, but I'm gonna sit back by the bar.
Two of the craziest I saw, one of them was I broke my finger at this show, was Agnostic Front in New Orleans in 84. And I don't know if this is true or not, but they played at, I want to say it was a place called the Soiled Dove. But that wasn't the real name of the club. They just they were having a punk show that night and they advertised it as such. But I want to say, and like I said, I may be wrong about this. It may be something people made up, but that the promoter of the show gave them like some new wave tape and said that was the band. So they'd let them play.
Oh, yeah.
And man, it went nuts, dude. That and what's the scariest show I've ever been at? It was in 1988 when Sham 69 did a reunion in Atlanta during the height of like Nazi skinhead phase.
stuff,
Dude, it was terrifying. It was cool though. Jimmy Percy did not go along with any of it. Had a lot to say, but it was really, really scary show.
I guess Sham 69 would attract a lot of boneheads. I would imagine. Yeah, but
so good though.
You know what's weird though is like growing up in the 90s, right? I'm primarily a 90s kid, right? And I grew up with like these anti-Nazi bands and like, Dead Kennedys, Nazi punks, fuck off. And like, in the 90s, I believed that the Nazi question had been settled, and here we are in 2024 and it's a thing again.
Yep. There's always going to be that kid that sees somebody else getting that feeling of power by intimidating others. And especially if they feel like they have no power at home or no control at home, they're going to go put on those clothes and hang around with people and intimidate people.
Man, that was the therapist's interpretation of Nazis for
Yeah,
sure.
so-
But yeah, you're right.
Growing up in Miami, very multicultural.
Yeah.
No room for Nazis at the shows.
Yeah.
They would come down from like Orlando area.
I was going to say the O-Town Skins.
The O-Town Skins, yeah. They would come down and they did not last very long coming into shows in Miami. So that's what I thought it was like, okay, cool. Like these people will pop their head up every now and then. In 1989, I go visit my father in Huntington Beach, California, which is Orange County.
Oh, yeah.
And I was just like, these people are just walking around with like huge swastika tattoos. And it was weird going to shows too, because you'd have like the suicidal guys that were like vatos, more like gangsters. And then these guys, and they're all kind of like sort of coexisting, like don't necessarily like each other, but they're tolerating each other. And I was taken
But they all
aback.
like Bad Religion. You know?
And oh my God.
LA Death Squad, that
LA Death Squad and Peni and all those guys.
Yeah.
I went to like this place called the Family Fun Center in Fountain Valley, and I was wearing an agnostic front shirt, and some kids walk up to me and I'm just like, hey, yeah, you guys got a lot of problems with Nazis around here? And the guy like pulls up, and he was like my age too and had a little pinner like swastika tattoo, and I'm just like, all right, copy that, I'll see y'all later. Yeah, it was definitely a whole different set of circumstances there, and I had no idea what I was walking into, but I learned pretty quick.
Yeah,
I remember seeing GBH, and I think it was Pensacola, or maybe Tampa. I don't know the layout of Florida very well, even though I lived there as a child briefly. But the O-Town Skins came up, and I remember their leader was some guy named Helmet.
with a U.
Huh? I don't know.
With like a little umlaut.
But it was like one of those things like, helmet's here. And I was like, who the hell's Helmet? And then I saw him and all his goons, and I was like, okay, yeah, I think I'm going to stay over here.
Yeah.
But so punk rock, you're playing in bands, right? Which substance abuse tends to go hand in hand with being in a punk.
Oh yeah, we talk about other stuff here too. That's right. I always forget what.
Especially when, like, growing up, I was really into I like to say I was into a lot of the great ideas behind it, but I was also into a lot of the image of it.
Yeah.
And Sid Vicious looked very cool to me.
Yeah.
Dee Dee Ramone I'm still kind of obsessed with Dee Dee Ramone, was like one of my heroes. Johnny Thunders.
Yeah.
All of these people have died from heroin overdoses. I almost played guitar with Gigi Allen when I was 15.
Yeah. Oh my God.
My mom talked to him on the phone. But,
you're lucky he didn't try to fuck your mom.
He was nice.
Hey, Mrs. Thomas, this is Gigi Allen. Is Dave home?
But yeah, it's one of the things is kind of romanticizing that lifestyle.
Yeah.
Which went hand in hand with like, I already like this. And the thing is, being a kid in Mississippi, that we had, drinking, pills, maybe cocaine every now and then. It was a college town.
Yeah.
None of us really understood what being a drug addict was.
Right.
It's very romanticized.
It is.
Right. And it seems there was an era where like heroin chic, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's because I came from the same place of like, before even being in the world of heroin, like that was something that attracted me in a weird way.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, once again, that kind of otherworldly thing. It's something that exists outside of where I am.
Yeah.
And what I see is like the whole idea of the beautiful loser, Sid Vicious, Johnny Thunders, and all this. What I don't see are people that live on the streets with missing teeth that are dying, and I think that so much of that, I mean, even look at like Dee Dee Ramone's life after he left the Ramones. I mean, he basically, lived like a homeless person for a long time. And, I think a lot of that stuff back then too, which I saw with a lot of my friends, was so many undiagnosed mental health problems that led into addiction as well. So many of my friends that died, we look back, and think, when we were kids, they're like, yeah, they're quirky, they're weird. And we look back, no, they were schizophrenic or bipolar. And a lot of that went unchecked. And, one of the things we talk about, like culturally, how different cultures feel about addiction. Southern Mississippi in the 80s, there's no such thing.
Yeah.
You're depressed, get undepressed. No, why aren't you drinking?
Yeah.
Things like that.
So with dual diagnosis, what do you find is one of the most hardest things to treat as a therapist when you come across somebody with a dual diagnosis?
Schizoaffective and BPD.
BPD is for the layman.
For the layman. It's funny you say that because I always thought it was bipolar disorder.
Oh,
I see
no.
BPD. No, but it is borderline personality disorder. And it has to do a lot with the way that we attach to other people. And I think a lot of times, a lot of us can look and think that we, see that we may have some undiagnosed BPD traits, but a lot of times it will come with this idea of attaching to one person, having unrealistic expectations of relationships with people or imprinting on people. But what it boils down to is none of these relationships are healthy. And most of the time they turn into really unhealthy conflict. A lot of time there's a lot of, you say yes, I say no. You say that's black, I'm going to say it's white. Things like that. And that can be really difficult when dealing with addiction as well, because the attitude, a lot of times that attitude of I can't do this is with it, or I don't want to. If you're telling me this, then I don't believe you, or I already know what I need to do. That's something run into a lot. And then with schizoaffective, it's so unpredictable.
Right.
One of the things we work on is trying to identify patterns that can bring on the symptoms of it and such. One of the things we work on, like on our treatment plans, I want to identify when you're feeling this way is, if you're going to go into a manic episode or if you're going to go, opposite and go a depressive episode, what is that going to look like for you? And how are you going to recognize it? Because that's one thing I see consistently, especially with mania, is the clients not recognizing they're in a manic state, even though it's something they've done over and over in their lives.
Right.
It's almost like, you seen the movie Inception?
Mm-hmm.
You know how they each have their token that they use to verify reality? Mm-hmm. It's almost like helping them identify, how do I know when I'm in this state? Because you don't see it when you're in it.
That's right.
Right. They just, when you're in the depressive state, it's just like, you don't remember that life was ever any other way and can't imagine it being any different, and same with the manic state. So it can be really challenging to try to get that person to go to groups, process in sessions, do some inward reflection and that digging that we ask for in recovery. So it's
almost like a lot of similarities to dealing with somebody who just has substance use disorder, right? To be like, that your life is a mess because you keep on going in this cycle. Yeah. All you have to do is, well, at least for substance use, you just have to say, you just have to take yourself away from the situation.
Yeah.
And things will not be so bad, but it's such a hard thing at that point.
It is.
I'm dealing with a family friend who we've been trying to get into treatment for a couple of years at this point, and he keeps getting locked up, calling right before, he straightens out, and he detoxes in jail, he kicks in jail. And then
it's the best way to detox.
Oh yeah, you've done it, right?
Yeah.
And we'll call, and this last time he called me, and he has never called me before. He's always called his dad.
Someone else has called you and said,
hey, he's ready. And then he called me this time, and we had a plan for him, and we were going to get him out here. And I'm just like, listen, man, just don't go see the homies when you get out. Just don't go see let's just get you in treatment right away. Even if it's not I'm not, it's nothing that I'm trying to do. Obviously, I'm not trying to get him just into Recovery Unplugged. I'm find something where you are. If you need a transport, we'll have somebody there the second you get out. Because when you keep on going back and forth, he's my parole officers, I'm listen, if you go out, you're just going to get locked up again anyway. If you go to treatment, you could take care of all that shit afterwards. But and then I talked to his wife.
For the record, I've never seen anybody's PO pissed off at them for going to rehab.
Right, exactly.
I know.
They might be a little annoyed because they got to do some paperwork and transfer you or whatever. But no one's ever, it's never hurt anybody.
Yeah.
No. That's what I tell them so often. I'm supposed to be in Bear County. They're not going to care.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
But it's funny you talk about don't go see the homies. That's one of the biggest issues I see with relapse is either an inability to change your environment or a refusal to.
Yeah.
It's that kind of idea that I talk to them a lot. The idea of being sober is not just living the life you're living right now without drugs. There's a lot more that goes along with that.
Yeah.
And if you're going right back to that situation, you're going to go right back to what you were doing.
That's one of the things that is really kind of heartbreaking for me working in treatment, right? Because I really believe in the idea that like addiction is a disease of disconnection.
Yeah,
right.
definitely.
And so like I watch clients come in and they, and they've been so isolated and they start to detox and they start to form community at the facility. Right. And you see these guys, hardcore dope fiends, right?
Yeah.
Like, playing Scrabble and dominoes and helping each other do the dishes and telling stupid jokes.
Doing mini groups amongst themselves.
Yes.
I love it.
And that part's beautiful.
It is.
But then they finish treatment and that community eventually goes away because, even if they all stay in Austin, like they're not all going to stay sober and it's not going to be the same as it was when they were at the facility. Right. Yeah. So then they get this community and then they almost have it ripped away again to a certain degree. And then they go back to the community that they've known for years and years, right? And that's why we push like the alumni program so much, right? Because like we don't get paid for the alumni program, right? Like the insurance doesn't reimburse us for that. But that's like, if they can get connected to the alumni community, that is something that is sustainable for them.
Yeah.
That hopefully they can kind of pick up where they left off. And anyway.
And we see that a lot too. And that's one of the greatest things when our alumni sends out, as it like, I don't know if it's quarterly or just kind of randomly, but success stories. And I will say 90% of the ones I see have kept up with alumni.
Yeah.
And it's
connected.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I stayed close.
Yeah.
I think you've been in one of those newsletters.
Yeah, I have. I've usually on my clean date, they'll put me in there. And
nice.
So, shout out my best friend who I was in treatment with at Recovery Unplugged, Mike Demchek, just got hired as the new alumni coordinator in South Florida.
So
nice.
I'm so thrilled.
I know that was a rigorously competitive search.
Yeah. Yeah, he's going to be coming out here in a couple weeks. We'll have him on the show. He's great dude. We met in treatment. I fucking hated him the first time I saw him. I wanted to punch him in the face.
Yeah.
But then we started talking about skateboarding, and we're best friends ever since. So he's doing really well now. Shout out, Mike.
Rewinding. We keep on. This is. I hate having to like get us back on track, but we do have a goal here, right? So you're playing in different bands, punk rock, substance abuse, right? In that lifestyle, I think it's really hard for people to identify like when things started to go wrong, right?
Yeah, it took me a very long time because hey, I'm living like Sid Vicious. I'm living like Dee Dee Ramone and all this stuff, except I don't realize I have people to take care of them and things I don't. But I was living the life I thought I wanted. And I drifted on that for quite a while. So being a kid just from Mississippi, even though like when I was a teenager, we got to open for like 7 seconds, things like that. It was really cool. Nice. But actually like getting to play in these like cities and stuff and people like us. And
like for Mississippi, any city, right? You're like Baltimore. Wow.
Yeah. I mean,
Pittsburgh.
That's
incredible.
It's like, I will never take any of this for granted. Yeah. And I still, to this day, like even living in Austin, I don't take it for granted, but, I started to take it for granted, and playing music it's something that I can do when I'm messed up. I played bass in this band. And the thing
easiest instrument to play while fucked up.
It is, because the thing is, it's easy to play bass, but it's hard to be a good bass player. But you can always rest on your laurels. And so I wasn't really challenging myself for growing. And really, the whole thing, the band really became, I felt like, for myself anyway, it was just a vehicle for me to, I don't know, kind of show my ass. Unfortunately,
which band was this?
The Dead End Cruisers. And me and it's fun, we're all like brothers now, but I left the band. I was really messed up when I did, and it was in San Francisco, and it was a big mess, man. But as for things,
what era is this? What year?
That would have been 1999, I think. But then after,
right in the heart of the new metal.
Yeah, that's what it was. We were crushed by Papa Roach. But things just went really downhill.
Cut your life into pieces.
I started surrounding myself with, and this is something that I feel bad about, is I started surrounding myself with people that basically would do what I said. And since I'd played in a band, and I had this other band going at the time that it was pretty good too, but it was easy for me to find people and use them. And that's something I've always felt kind of crappy about, because these people were good friends to me and I wasn't to them.
Yeah.
And I've apologized to all of them since, and I don't know if it held water or not, but I do think about it often.
So when you leave the band in 99,
Yeah.
it's not to get sober. It's
Oh, hell
just to
no.
change your lifestyle a little bit.
Yeah. Things I couldn't handle being on the road anymore. And I don't know. I became really lazy too, for one thing. And I don't know. I think that all of my frustrations in my life outside of the band, unfortunately, I laid it on them. I was very messed up. And, so then I started working at Emo's, which was great because I could drink and do drugs there all the time. It's the only job I've ever had where you could do and say whatever you wanted to anybody.
Yeah.
Worked there for a long time. It's really, it's a lot of great shows there, a lot of fun times, but ultimately it's a really negative place. I started feeling like anyway, it would go up and down, especially when everybody there was using things like that. But, my life outside of that was a complete mess. I lived like in squalor, basically, like personal hygiene or my house, all that. Everything was just a complete mess. I started, oddly enough, I had this kind of like freak out once where we had this like block party thing. It was like a street party because everybody from all these different bands lived on our little short street. And so we had this thing and all these bands played and this weirdo showed up just like with a ton of speed. And so everybody's doing it and I kept doing it and kept doing it. And it like wigged me out like really hard. And I had some really bad auditory hallucinations that scared the hell out of me. And I couldn't get myself right after that.
How long it was
that would have been 2004. The psychosis went on for a couple of days, but the residual effects for a week after.
Yeah.
That was one of those, like, I guess my brain is just like this.
It was.
Just feeling like
moments.
burnt completely. Yeah.
Yeah. And also prior to that too, so I rewind a little bit, my ex-girlfriend died of a heroin overdose and she was just left for dead in Houston. And but you would think, I'm going to clean myself up. Nah, it just went worse and worse. And so after the psychosis thing, though, one thing I started doing was I got really weirded out about my surroundings. So I started keeping things clean and not like in a speed freak sort of way, but I started cleaning up and getting things more organized, getting more organized. And then I reconnected with Renee, who's my wife now of 20 years. And we had gone out previously for a short period of time.
When you were still a mess?
Yeah. And when we started going out again, I was still a mess. But I don't know, things got serious with us. And I just decided, and it wasn't because it was New Year's Day or anything. It just so happened I had this moment of clarity that kind of woke up and said, I can't live like this anymore. And I think that, I had so many people say, well, Renee really changed your life, which she did. But she made me realize I could do it for myself.
Yeah.
And that she deserved that.
What was going on in that moment of clarity? Like, what was that last 24 hours like?
Honestly, it wasn't even that bad.
Just had enough.
I mean, I can remember waking up and just like, it was very like, wake up with a hangover. You're not thinking clearly. I just remember I thought very clearly, like, this is going to be the rest of my life or I'm going to stop. And if this is the rest of my life, I will die.
Yeah.
Which is funny enough. I have this genetic condition called alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency that affects lung function and can affect liver function. And to my doctor said, had I continued on like that, especially with alcohol, that there's no doubt that I would have been dead. So I don't know, man. Divine intervention? I don't know. But
yeah, and it sounds like beforehand, like you were just kind of getting sick of it, Like,
I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated it. I really did. There was no fun left in it. Well, most of my close friends didn't want to be around me anymore. It's like one of my friends said is like, what are we going to do to sit there and, what can we do? Just watch you die.
Yeah.
And I hated myself. I hated my life. And I just really didn't believe that life existed out there for me. It's like, I talk to the clients a lot, that idea, when you get used to getting table scraps, settling for things and watching other people like work for things and get things. You're like, I'm okay with this, or I don't deserve any more than this. And, a lot of it's self-pity. A lot of it is if I don't challenge myself, then I'm not going to fail. And I can say, or if I do challenge myself, it's gonna be like half-ass, and I can say, "See, I told you, nothing works for me."
Yeah.
There's a lot of paths to recovery, right?
Yeah.
But one thing that I believe holds true for all recovery stories is that, like, when you remove such a big part of someone's life, right? The only way they can sustain it is to fill that void with other things. So like, what did you start to fill your life with at that point?
Okay. Funny enough, as a gamer, World of Warcraft just came out. So I was still working at Emos. I ran my mouth a lot about getting clean, and I didn't know if I could do it or not, but I was like, I'm going to try. And then a couple of people that worked there were real assholes about it and thought it was a big joke. One of them,
Twitter.
haha, that's funny. You're such a loser and a fuck up. There's no way you can. One of them like would open up a whiskey bottle and wave it around in front of me. And I was just, you know what, man? Okay, I'm going to show this guy, if anything. But then lucky enough, one of the things, I'm also like a voracious reader. I started reading more and was able to remember what I'd read the night before. But World of Warcraft came out, already a huge gamer. And dude, that was my life for my first 9 months of recovery. And it's crazy, but it saved me because it gave me something to do and have those dopamine hits.
The dopamine receptors.
I mean, that's what, it really did. And then one of the things I think that people struggle with a lot is, so in my addiction, I was not, people always have that idea of the functional addict, which is not true, but I've known people that can maintain it and still have a quality of life. I wasn't very good at that. So immediately good things started happening to me. Because like I had never had a bank account. I didn't have a car or a license or anything. And I started getting these things. And I was like, well, I like this. Being able to drive somewhere when I want to. It's like I'd forgotten all that, like gone feral kind of.
That's such a beautiful part of early recovery where it's like this normal, mundane, everyday people shit is just like, holy crap.
It's fun, man. And I dig it.
I still think that getting my license back was more monumental for me than like I just bought a house recently. And I think just the little things were more monumental for me because once you start getting shit back together, it's kind of like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like just like a normal adult, but those little victories like in the first year or so or whatever. My first car, I had a little shitty blue Volkswagen Beetle. It was like a 1999 Volkswagen Beetle, and this was just a few years ago, and I fucking loved that car, and nobody couldn't tell me that I wasn't the king of the fucking road in that thing.
Did you put little flowers in the little cup?
No,
little eyelashes over the
I should.
That was Chelsea's first car. After we met, she didn't have a car for a while. She got a Beetle. She blew it out in Johnson City. Pregnant.
Johnson City. I left a studded belt in the men's bathroom there once coming back from California.
From tying off with it?
No, actually. I was using the restroom and I set it on the...
You can't really tie off with the studded belt, though.
Yes, you can.
Can you?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
You probably could.
Speaking from experience.
Got to make sure you don't have it inside out.
That's true. Yeah, there you go.
So World of War, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, and there's actually a lot of stuff like people are trying to figure out now, like how to use video games in a way to help people recover because it's like there's a reason why you still play Candy Crush, because it hits those dopamine receptors in an early recovery. Your brain does not know or remember how to make dopamine anymore. Like nothing hits that stimulus the way the heroin did or the alcohol did.
Exercise, gaming. Ping pong is a huge fucking...
One of the things I always explain to the clients is that we've got this idea, I think that everybody has this general idea of I use drugs or I drink or I gamble or whatever, whatever your addiction is. And my dopamine system goes off and I'm rewarded. And that's really the long and short of it as to what we know. I do this, I get a dopamine hit.
Yes.
But what's interesting, and this is what I try to explain to them a lot, is you think about like, we normally sit in the area of, I think around like 40 to 50 to 60, around 50%, 50 nanograms per deciliter. That is what we're at in homeostasis. Right now, that's about what we're all at. When we laugh and stuff, it might go up to like 55.
Yeah.
If somebody came in here and said we all won the lottery, it could go up to about 100.
Oh, hell yeah.
And that is about what we are supposed to feel, about 100 nanograms per deciliter. When you do methamphetamine, it goes up to 1,100 nanograms per deciliter. So you're feeling about 10 times more than you're supposed to ever feel. And not only that, it doesn't do that reuptake where it goes back down. It stays up. And so that is why it is so difficult to find what, like I had that. Do you think, and this funny, like somebody had said on a video I watched, going to my kid's birthday party is not going to be fun for me because I've experienced this.
Kid's birthday party? Meth?
Yeah.
Which one?
It's crazy. And then we get down so low, after up and down, up and down, up and down, that we can't even really get out of bed. That's, I think one of the things we don't talk about enough, in the psych education part of it is that the idea that dopamine is also responsible for motivation. And that's why it's a necessary part of us as human beings. So if I don't have enough dopamine to be motivated, I'm in treatment. I'm not going to care about going to a group. I'm not going to care about getting to a session. And if I am able to make it to one, all I'm going to hear is blah, 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 blah.
The Charlie Brown teacher.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wah, 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 wah. But yeah, it's interesting how much our body, and everything in our life, even outside of addiction, depends on that.
So knowing this,
Yeah.
you work in this field.
Mhm.
How do you break through to somebody who's going through that?
That's a difficult question. One of the things and this is something I believe, in my opinion, all of the knowledge that we have about it is really secondary to being able to be personable and empathetic with somebody. I let them know first and foremost, a lot of times, we're two addicts talking. I just happen to have some education on it.
Right.
I think through self-disclosure, minimally, you can gauge it by the people, but letting them know that you're there with them. Because so many times they're coming from a place of no trust whatsoever. You surround yourself with people that you can't trust. You can't trust yourself. So you're going to trust some guy sitting here going, "Hey man, I'm just here to help you."
Yeah.
Their first idea is what's the angle, or when's the other shoe going to drop? So I think one of the things I like to do is explaining the neurobiology of it. It's kind of a little more in depth than what I just did, but say, this is why you do this. Because so many clients I talk to are like, I don't know why I keep doing this. And I feel like the first time I kind of started learning this stuff, it made so much sense to me that, I can check my motivation on things now. That's one thing we forget how to do. Check our motivations. I mean, to be completely honest with y'all, anytime if I get hurt or something, I don't think, and I don't like that I get hurt a lot, but say if I broke my wrist or something, my first thought is not going to be, oh man, I hope I'm okay. My first thought, it might even that much, like a millisecond, is going to be, I wonder if I can get painkillers.
Yeah.
And that's 19 years into
Right.
sobriety.
I think I've talked about it on the show before, but I got LASIK last year.
Yeah.
Right? And as I'm doing my little consult and whatever, they're like, oh, about an hour before you do the surgery, we're going to give you a Valium.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, fuck.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I
Worth the price of admission right here.
about 2 years ago, I had all my bottom teeth redone, and they had to do some bone graft in there and stuff. I know you remember that with Dr. Frank.
Yeah.
And I had never been in so much pain the days following
I
that.
can imagine.
And it was, and he's like, listen, I know you're in recovery and everything. He's like, but we can give you something for the pain because it's going to be pretty unbearable.
Yeah.
And I was crying at night. My partner was just like, Jason, you're taking too many over-the-counter pain meds. Because I was just swallowing one after the other. But I would not take I wouldn't even take a Tylenol 3 just because I knew exactly how I would feel when the last one was gone. And that scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
That scared me so much. And that's one of those things where I'm like, I've heard that cliche of playing the tape through so many times, but here it is in action.
Yeah.
It's just not worth it because I know how I'm going to feel, and it's nothing could compare to that pain inside. Once the drugs that are assigned to me or prescribed to me, but once those are gone, I don't think I could handle that.
Well, and your day starts revolving around it too. As an addict, not everybody maybe wants to admit that, but I know mine would. My day I don't care about the pain. My day is going to revolve around wanting to get a pill and thinking of how I can take more than I'm supposed to, because it really, really hurts.
Yeah.
I remember being in the hospital one time. I had surgery and I had a little morphine drip.
Yeah.
And there's a limit. They put a limit on the little button that you can push. I don't know if it's every 30 minutes or what, but I was.
You could let it accumulate and then just do one big push.
Oh, I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, you could do that. The more you know.
So Dave, at what point, I'm just curious, when did you decide you wanted to be a counselor?
Originally, like I said, I dropped out of high school. I didn't really start going to college until I was in my late 30s or maybe even 40. And I got my bachelor's in English literature. I wanted to be an American literature professor at a four-year university. And those jobs are impossible to come by. And so I decided, well, then I think maybe I'll teach high school. I wanted to do something like, I always kind of joke, I want to give something back to the society I've taken so much from.
Right.
And so I thought teaching would be the pathway. And I substituted a lot. And I did not like high school at all. That's just
Not even the second time around?
no, I hated it even more. But one thing I did is something I found that I did like working with elementary kids.
But they're not much into the English literature.
Well, no, especially considering the majority of the demographic I taught didn't speak a lot of English. So I taught for a school that really, our demographic is people at poverty and below, and which I felt really good doing there, advocating for these kids who need somebody to advocate for them. But I taught second grade. And I loved the kids. I loved their families. They all loved me. The school I was at had a really high turnaround, but I stayed. So I taught everybody's, I taught their siblings, brothers, sisters, and all that. So I knew the families. But then the pandemic came and we left for spring break and just never went back. And I've been saying for a couple of years I've been saying for a long time, I'd like to work in addiction in some capacity, but most of it was just hot air, and then it's like, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go to grad school. And I did. I was nervous about doing it. And I did. And I got a job at an online university, working from home while I went to grad school. But I just knew that drugs have caused so much harm, not only in my life, but into the lives of my friends. Yeah. I've got a lot of friends that aren't here anymore. And one of the things that we talk about a lot, or I talk about a lot with the clients, is the idea of giving meaning to things that maybe wouldn't have meaning otherwise. Like our friends that have died of overdose and things like that. An overdose generally is a sad, lonely, meaningless death. Yeah. But if I can apply meaning to it in the way that I'm going to live that life that person wanted me to live, or that life they're not able to live, then is it meaningless? And that's also like, we talk about the addicts a lot. And I'm sure we've all dealt with this. I wasted so much time. If I can take that time and figure out what I've learned from it, and also take what I've learned and help somebody else, is that time wasted? I don't think it is.
Right.
In fact, I think that if we are able to find our roadmap out of hell and we don't share it with people, that kind of makes us assholes. But it does give us, but I mean, the thing is, everything we do has meaning. We just have to find the way to apply meaning to it, because I'm sure y'all have been there before. It's a horrible place to sit going, I've wasted this much of my life and I'll never get it back.
Yeah.
So
having the life experience you have and then going into it professionally, what is, two-part question, the most optimistic and the most concerning trend that you see in dealing with mental health and substance use treatment?
Most optimistic I see is, and this is like slowly, is that the general public is becoming more educated about addiction and about mental health. I mean, nowhere near as fast as it needs to be, but I do believe that addiction is more so looked at as the disease of the brain that it is. And if you disagree with me, that's medical fact, not my opinion.
Fight you.
Yeah, that's disease of the brain rather than that of it being a moral failure. Yeah. And conversely, I think that the most disappointing thing is the lack of mental health resources that are actually available to people. I know in my experience, having to deal with some mental health officials, and of course, not all of them, but some of them, it's almost like the people that we're advocating for aren't worth advocating for. And it's disappointing, especially when we're in the field that we are to help people. It shouldn't matter, anything like that. One of the things I talk to the clients about, like the idea of being kind, we're bound by ethics as well. And I'm going to treat everybody in an ethical manner. I'm kind. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you've done. I will always be kind to you. And I don't care what you do with that. But I think that's, where a lot of the discourse we find in ourselves comes from. It's not living in accordance with those core values. And but I think that's the most disappointing thing is I think I see a lot of people that want help that are either A, unable to get it, or unaware of how to get it.
I mean, not to get super political, but with what Dave's talking about, there was that whole defund the police thing a while back, right? And, part of it that I really liked was that like police get called on mental health stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And even in a city the size of Austin, I believe there's less than a dozen mental health officers, right? And it's like, why? Why is that a thing? Why is our best solution as like, oh, we're going to teach a police officer how to work with people with mental health? It's like, they should have that training, right?
Yeah.
But like us as a treatment center, right? When a client's having a crisis that is beyond our capacities in a 24-hour facility with people with master's degrees and doctors, it feels weird, calling the cops on a client to check on their well-being. And it's like, man, like in our society today, especially like in a liberal city like Austin, there should be something else that you can call. And I've had a lot of great experience with mental health officers. Like, it's not a knock on them, right? I've seen them actually like convince clients to stay and like be on our side and thank us for the work that we do, which is great, but there needs to, there should be a better system for that.
Yeah. And I mean, there's nothing like somebody that's in the middle of a mental health episode that needs help that ends up just getting arrested because they have an outstanding warrant.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's happened.
Yeah. I've seen it too. And that person is not taken to a mental health facility. They're taken to jail. And it's just not right.
Do you have questions that the man wanted you to ask?
I slipped them in.
Oh, look at you. Just FYI fans. It's rapid fire question time.
All right, let's go.
It's rapid fire question time.
Go for it, Jason.
Band we would be surprised that you just do not like.
I cannot stand Metallica.
All eras of Metallica?
I fucking hate Metallica. And I'll tell you why. Because,
yes.
Let's take the rapid fire out of this part.
Even though I recognize their contribution to music, in my punk rock scene, 1984, 1985, they are directly responsible for bringing in people who did not understand what was going on, starting fights, being general assholes, and ruining it.
Oh, man.
Period.
Is there a member of Metallica that you hate the most?
Yeah, I hate Lars Ulrich the most.
Yes, correct.
Mainly just because, A, I don't think he's that good of a drummer, and secondly, the whole thing with Napster, where it's like, yeah, I'm worth $500 million. I don't want you to get my nickel for free.
Man, now Lars will never come on the show.
Yeah, good. I hope he doesn't.
This episode sponsored by Metallica.
All right, question number 2. Ben and Jerry's comes to you and they say, Dave, we'd love to make a signature Ben and Jerry's ice cream flavor based on you. What do you want to call it and what do you want to put in it?
Call it Emergency Room. And it would be vanilla ice cream with chocolate fudge stitches and in red, like strawberry jam or something in it.
Love it.
So it looks like an open wound.
Special Halloween only limited time flavor.
Best live band you've ever seen.
Oh man. There's so many different ways to look at that. I'm going to say, oh my God, I can't even think. I'll say my favorite band I ever saw, because I never thought I'd get to see them. And, it was just an amazing experience with seeing Mott the Hoople in Cleveland about 4 years ago. Me and one of the guys from the Cruisers, he's like my brother. We flew up there and went and saw him. Ian Hunter is in his 80s. They were amazing. But God, I don't know. I mean, all kinds of stuff, man. I've got to see, like growing up in the 80s, I saw the millions of punk rock bands that were fantastic. Also, man, me and a couple of my friends always go see Iron Maiden as well. All over the place. I've seen Brian Wilson a couple of times. God, I could talk about that forever, but I'm just going to say Mott the Hoople.
Okay, Mott the Hoople.
Mott the Hoople. I'm going to steal Jason's question.
Okay, go ahead.
Paranormal or supernatural experiences. Have you ever had one?
Oh, hell yeah. So I really dig this kind of stuff, but there was this old house in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. It was built, it was in the historic district, and we only lived there for a few months before the other denizens ran us out. It was the only rental on the street. But we lived upstairs, and it was built, it had to be like in the 1800s or something. It's a giant old house. And it was really weird because when you were there by yourself, it felt really oppressive. But the first night we stayed there, we were all like drinking and getting messed up, and we were in like the front room, and we started hearing these noises, like something like rustling. It sounded like almost like leaves. So we go to the back of the house, and it would start up front. We went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth like that. And the next night, we're like, that was weird. And the next night, some friends of ours came down from Jackson to stay, And one of them slept on the couch, and he asked the next morning, he's like, what the hell were y'all doing up and down the stairs all night? I was like, what do you mean up and down the stairs all night? And he said, were y'all just running up and down the stairs? I saw it look like you were doing laundry or something. No, nobody was. And the next day, after we were talking about that, we had this sign that hung up that said "No brats allowed." It was directed at this person we knew, and that sign we're watching it, and it fell off it didn't just fall like a nail came off. It popped off and
somebody
fell over.
Took it.
But that place always felt really weird to me. But that's just one. I've had several.
All right, you get the last one.
All right. What's the secret?
What is the secret? Just like I tell the clients. No matter how much sobriety you have, think of it as your first day. I'll tell you, the first week of sobriety means a hell of a lot more than the 19th year. I've got a lot of practice at it. I tell them every day that I have 1/6 of my first success of the day is to get out of bed. And so many people will say, well, that's not a success. Everybody gets out of bed. Yeah, I didn't for 20 years, so it's a success for me. The other, go to bed sober. That's it. I'm going to bed sober tonight because if I don't, then everything I have is gone. Anything else that happens, it's just icing on the cake. But I'm going to bed sober tonight. That is my goal. Am I going to go to bed sober tomorrow night? I don't know. Probably. I've got a lot of practice at it. But I'm not going to put that on myself. I don't carry the rest of my life around every day. But I am going to bed sober tonight. And that has held the secret to me. That and just I don't know, man. It's out there. That life that we all want is out there. And all three of us are living proof because, I know we've all sat there before and thought that it wasn't, or if it was, it wasn't for us. And so, yep, go to bed sober tonight.
All right.
That's a good answer.
Fucking A.
That's a good
It's
answer.
a great answer.
I'm going to put that top 5 answers to that question.
Nice.
My favorite is Larry Moe.
Yeah.
Larry Moe.
Yeah, this guy, Larry Moe, he had I don't know. I think it's because he said it. He was like, no hesitation. He was like, I have a spiritual path of life in which and I was like, I'm going to say top 3, actually. Not even top 5. Top 3.
Wow. Okay.
Excellent. So the last thing we do before we wrap things up is we give you the floor one more time to, I know you don't have anything to promote, but if you want to drop one last little nugget of wisdom to our listeners, viewers, etc.
Yeah. I just want everybody out there to know that we as sentient beings, every one of us is worthy of love and worthy to give love. A lot of things like that, when we think about them, they can come off as kind of hokey or sound kind of cheesy, but it's true. Everybody out there, myself included, Jason included, Joseph included, we deserve that life we want. And it is out there and we can get it. Stop settling for things. If you don't like something, change it. We're leaders. We all of us have been through the tough stuff already. Now it's time to go, just to hit the ground, man. That's what I tell everybody all the time. The life we've lived up to now is so damn hard. The rest of this stuff is icing on the cake, man, for being sober. And there's a reward at the end because we have 2 choices. We can live day to day in uncomfortability and in pain and have no reward, or we can live day to day in comfortability and challenge ourselves and have that reward at the end. But at the end of the day, it really is up to us. And I just want you to know that, you can do it. And I, want to give a shout out to everybody at Res 969.
Love it. Well, thank you, Dave, for taking time out of your day to come down here and talk to us, and all our viewers. Mm-hmm. Thank you to you, our loyal listeners, viewers out there in Talksy land. Wherever you happen to have stumbled upon this amazing show, please don't forget to like, follow, share, comment, subscribe, tell your friends. And from all of us here at Talksicology, there's 1,000 ways in
There's
and 1,000 ways out, and we hope you find yours. 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 Fuck this camera. Fuck yours.